filled with surprises and twists, and it is St. Luke's story writing at its best. The men in the gospel are disciples of Jesus. They're part of the larger group of those who knew Jesus and traveled with him. And they had just seen him arrested, tortured, and crucified and buried in Jerusalem. Their hopes in Jesus were shattered. They believed that he was the one who was sent by God to bring salvation to Israel. They had faith in him, but as a result of what they had seen and experienced, they were confused and depressed. They had pretty much given up hope. And not only that, they received bad news that the tomb of Jesus was empty. Apparently someone had taken his body. And I'm sure with all of this going around in their minds, they were just simply decided, let's just go home. Let's go back to Emmaus. Then as we hear, a stranger approaches them and walks with them along the way. And he pretends not to know what's going on. They tell him the story, what they believed and what they hoped, and how their hopes were shattered. And that's when the stranger insults them in a way, says to them, foolish people, how could you not know that this is the way the Messiah had to suffer and die in order to come into his glory? And then Jesus offers really the first Christian Bible study. He explains to them all the passages of the Hebrew Scriptures that referred to and foreshadowed the coming of the Christ. He's telling them, you should have known from your understanding of the Scriptures how this would have played out, should have played out. Well, finally, when they offer him hospitality, he sits with them at the table, and even though he's their guest, he is the one who takes the bread and offers the blessing, breaks it, and gives it to them. And with that, they recognize him. Why? Because they were most likely present at the Last Supper when Jesus said and did the same thing. And once they recognize him in the breaking of the bread, he vanishes. And what do? They have no choice except to go back to Jerusalem and share the good news with the other disciples. One thing this story tells us is that Christ is true to his promises. He had foretold that he would suffer, die, and rise again on the third day. And this is what he did. And he is the one who appears to his disciples, confirming this. He doesn't wait for them to find him. He doesn't wait for them to figure things out. The risen Christ takes the initiative, and he strengthens their faith, and he wants them to know everything he had foretold, everything he had taught them has come to fulfillment. If Jesus was willing to do this for his own disciples, then we can be certain he does the same for each of us. It is the risen Christ who speaks to us in our hearts each day when we pray, when we read the Scriptures, or when we do good unto others. It is risen Christ who calms our hearts when we're anxious, who gives clarity to us when we are confused, who gives us courage when we are fearful. And it is the risen Christ who takes the bread and the wine and blesses them for us each day. So the risen Christ still lives and moves among us. He is traveling with us each day as he walked along the road with the two disciples from Emmaus. And even in our troubled world, we know that he is present, changing hearts, doing good for others through us. This is the good news. This is the good news that we are called to share with other people, that Christ is walking with us each day, and that he is leading us in the direction of his kingdom.